Nominated, and he's Kenyan, and we're awesome people. So let's hopefully bring this home. And speaking about awesome people, what an awesome person I have with me in studio. So you were very particular on how I pronounce your name, Sindio. You're like, it has the accent. So ni Mũnũku,
Mũnũku, yes.
Mũnũku.
You actually got it right when you called it the first time.
Yeah.
And I was surprised because people usually don't get it, even people who have been with for a long time.
Yeah, so Robert Mũnũku.
Yes.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
It's because, you know, Kiambu, I interact with a lot of people.
Okay.
My producer is called Shege, so
Oh, yeah.
it helps.
Yeah, but
How
at
do you
least
say?
the names are consistent. Not love. Eh?
Not like love. It's
Yeah.
still the same name. When he sat down, the first thing he asked me was, "You're still called Amina?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" And I was like, "Oh, I like that. I like that."
Yeah.
So, Robert, welcome to the studio.
Thank you.
And I bet people are very eager to hear your story because I'm like, "Oh, this is an amazing person I'm going to be interviewing."
Yeah.
So, tell us about Robert. So, where were you born and brought up?
Well, very much from Nairobi. Basically, the past 3 decades of my life. I've been, well, I don't know where to start. I mean, I've been doing a lot of visual art from childhood.
Yeah.
And mainly because it's something I've always loved. It was something spotted early by my parents and fortunately nurtured, because most people in my age bracket never really was supported when they were doing arts. It was always seen as something you do as a hobby, and you should do some other things like maybe law or architecture or something else. So I was fortunate enough, and I'm humbled by that privilege to have parents who are supportive. And yeah, I think later on I started learning other things, and I came to realize that my skills were not really in painting or drawing or doing like fine art. This was a much later, like an epiphany. I learned that my skills are actually creativity and the ability to learn skills.
Yeah.
And that for me has enabled me to pick up things like cinematography, photography, and any other skill which I can use to express my creativity. So from a few years back, working in the mainstream, what I call mainstream creative industry, I saw so many gaps.
Yeah.
Many people who were running organizations that were meant to support artists did not really have it at heart. They were doing it because they had other goals and which is very okay. But what that does is it doesn't really lead to the impact which is desired. And I suffered from some kind of ambivalence during this period. And I was left asking myself what to do. Should I stay here in these organizations, very large organizations with lots of money, or should I take it upon myself? And as the saying goes, if you can't take the heat, you get out of the kitchen and do it yourself. And that's why I later began an organization called Mau Mau Collective.
Yeah.
And the essence of Mau Mau Collective basically is to fill the gaps which I felt were never addressed when I was back in what I call mainstream creative industry.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think the rest is history. And many times, I mean, I've been seen as a dilettante in terms of, oh, this guy is doing all these things. But no, I'm not. I really feel these are areas which need to be addressed. And so far, it's been working, and I thank God for that.
All right.
Yeah.
So what are those areas?
For Mau Mau?
Yeah.
Well, we deal with 3 key areas, very simple. The first is creating a Pan-African network. And let me just mention why. You know, you've heard of, obviously, the East African community, you've heard of ECOWAS, you've heard of COMESA. These are economic blocks, and they're also political blocks like the African Union, which try to consolidate the power in unity. So I asked myself, what can we do as creatives to consolidate that same kind of power?
And this is creatives all over, not
Yes.
specific to Kenya? Okay.
No, not at all. And that's the first thing we do. We're creating a Pan-African network.
Okay.
And I've been traveling a lot in the past maybe 3 years, really much. Really, in fact, I came from Egypt 2 weeks ago. And I try my best to move to African countries because this is where we share a lot. And we've been building a network. Right now, we are 250 strong. And I say like 10% of that 250, which is still growing, is other African countries other than Kenya. The second thing we do, which is very important and why I left the mainstream industry, is creative education. Artists in this country really struggle. They don't struggle because they don't have the talent. They struggle because they do not know how to manage that talent in order to make a living from it. And two, another thing is they do not strive to improve their talents to international standard. So we have actors, we have musicians, we have graffiti artists.
Oh, this is for everybody who's in art,
yes,
who uses creative arts. That's their career.
Exactly.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, the creative arts in general.
Yeah.
So I saw the gap, and the people who do these things don't do it at an international standard. They do it at a Kenyan standard.
Yeah.
And so you'll never really be an international success, or you'll never compete in an international market if you remain at that threshold. It's like, you know, this cup is only this cup. If you fill it, it can't get any more full. But if you get a big vase, it can hold more. And that's the mentality I hope to pass on to the other creatives, that you still need to keep learning. And learning is the key to successfully, to being a success in your trade.
But you have to be accepted in your home country first before you break out to the other countries and other turfs, because, you know, I mean, if Kenyans are not really relating with your music and you can't definitely pop in another country and you're not really popping at home.
Yeah.
I mean, save for Victoria Kimani, who I feel like is very popular in Nigeria and actually across the continent, but not as popular as she should be here in the country.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So then in that essence, does that make any sense?
It does. I mean, what you're saying is spot on. I mean, like, for me, it's a question of a trade-off. Would you rather be, let's use Victoria Kimani, who is really successful right now? I think for her, it's a acceptable trade-off to be popular internationally and not at home. Because after all, at the end of the day, your success, or what you gauge your success by, is basically you're doing. I would, if you look at the inverse, if you were to be a success here and you can't keep the lights on, you're a local sensation. There's so many local artists, I even know them personally. They're so popular. Popularity is one thing. Success is another. Or maybe success can be argued to be relative, but most of these popular people do not have tangible, let's say, monetary value, which is at par with their popularity.
With their fame.
With their fame. So you could be a famous popper. So,
of course.
Yeah. So
like so did Kokoma 3.
Yeah, exactly. Or even worse. So as I said, it's a trade-off. Would you rather be that popular guy who has like 2 million people who are always egging you on, but your landlord is always chasing you?
Yeah.
Or you probably have 10 people following you, but your work is internationally renowned, and your skill is like at a crescendo. It's constantly growing.
But you see, the thing about art is that it's not about money. It's actually, I think, the one industry that passion comes before money.
Yeah.
And a lot of others, because, you know, entrepreneurship, business, and, you know, you need the money, and money is important. And it is important to a lot of us, but then art is different.
Yes, it is. And that's the thing. Let me share a story. Like 5 years ago, we went for a family gathering, and one of my family friends, who's my age mate, told me something. At that time, it was like 8 years ago. I was working in a bank, by the way, 8 years ago. It's really interesting. And he told me something. At that time, we were both struggling with some form of ambivalence in our jobs, and we wanted to do what we really wanted, the passion you talk about. And I wanted to do art full time. And he, likewise, wanted to do something else. So he said something that I've never forgotten. He said, if you want to be a butterfly farmer, go, and you're really passionate about butterflies, you know even how those wings look like, the colors, everything, go ahead and you'll be the best butterfly farmer in the world. Why? Because your passion drives it. So passion is but an ingredient of success. Money, obviously, as you said, I totally agree, comes later. But if you do not have the passion, even that money will not come.
Yeah.
Or any other thing. Passion is always like the pivotal thing that will drive you to where you're headed.
Because money does come. Do you feel a lot of us don't do what we're passionate about?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like I meet a lot of very sad, unhappy people at work. They do it because they need to pay rent. They do it because they need to pay fees. They do it because they need to party. They do it because, but that's not what they love. You know, they would rather do something else, but then it sounds so unrealistic. They can't even tell the next person, to me, I want to be a butterfly farmer. You know what I mean? Like,
Exactly.
can you just stop this?